Wow, this is already the last hunt of the season, and we're going to end it off right. We're going to be chasing deer in northern Missouri, big whitetail buck in my home state. This is a buck Annetta nicknamed Cappy, and you're going to get to follow along and see my journey as I try to harvest this deer. It's a pretty cool hunt.
Ready? Is that good?
Yeah, it's good. Done. Relax. It's good. Count to 10 and shoot it.
One. Here we go. You ready?
Yep. You're good. Easy.
Right. My muzzleloader wouldn't go off. I ran 5 caps through it. It wouldn't fire. That's a big old buck, 150 incher, son of a gun.
Wow, how about that crazy hunt? Every hunter's dream, a big old whitetail buck inside bow range, except for you got a muzzleloader in your hand. Well folks, you can see I ran 5 caps through that muzzleloader trying to shoot that deer. Well, there's no excuses. My powder was wet. It was my fault. I'd been hunting in the rain, didn't realize my powder got wet. So I learned my lesson. Never go to the woods with a muzzleloader that has wet powder. Now you can see why we call this buck Cappy. He lived through 5 caps. So now let's advance to the next year, and it's round 2, Callie versus Cappy.
muzzleloader, and it didn't go off. We just called him in, and I just shot him right here. And we're not sure exactly if he's dead or not, but we hear him down there breathing and gurgling. We're at 90%. I can't believe it. Oh. Hey, Jesse saw him come down by that pond. We got set up. Did a little snort wheezing and some grunting. He walked right under us. Well, here's the deal. We got one flashlight. And I shot the buck. We looked at the film. I hit him right dead center in the shoulder. The arrow went in far enough. He's got one broadhead in his right lung. And we hear him down there coughing and hacking and carrying on. And when we got out of the tree, he moved about 30 yards and he just laid back down, we think. So we're going to opt to just get out of there, go eat. We're going to watch it on the big screen, see exactly what we think happened. Hey, and then phase 2, we'll let you know. I don't know how big he is, but holy cow, finally, 24 hours later, I got my hands around this rascal. One sleepless night, crying. I'm telling you right now, I decided today, nothing in my whole life has got my nerves shook up or put me in my place more than whitetail bucks. No other animal in the world has done to my emotions what these guys right here have done, and that's why I love to hunt them. Oh, look at them beams. This is the buck we call Cappy. Last year, 5 caps at him between 30 and 50 yards. My gun wouldn't go off. He disappeared. We never saw him again. This year he shows back up on trail cam late September. The first night I'm in a tree stand we'd set 2 years ago. Haven't been in it all year. And you know what we say, the first night in a tree is always absolutely the best, is it not?
It sure was last night. That is his textbook.
Unbelievable. We had a great hunt, as you can see. I shot him a little far forward, hurt him pretty bad. Took 24 hours to get him tracked down, but that's what it's called, bow hunting, and that's why you got to keep being persistent. So I went with what I knew about the area and what trails these deer run, and the last trail out, sure enough, I got almost to the highway and there he was laying. He jumped up and took off, but he was hurt so bad he just went right over the hill, and I was able to sneak up. After about 4 minutes of calming down, he put another hole through him about 48 yards, perfect right through the side. Lord was with me today. You guys, thank you very much for hanging with me. Gesso! Well, folks, you can see I finally was successful at harvesting Cappy. It was an awesome hunt. We snort wheezed that buck right to us. I love hunting early in the season. When you get a buck moving around like that, he can't resist a snort wheeze. And let's talk about the tips on this hunt. And tip number 1, well, it's pretty simple. Never go to the field with wet powder in your muzzleloader. It was my fault that this happened. I should have checked my powder. So learn from my mistakes and always check the powder in your muzzleloader. Tip number 2, and probably one of the most important that I want to talk to you about, is how to field judge a deer on the hoof. Folks, there's 3 important things about field judging deer. The first thing I always look at is the V shape of the neck. So from his head back to his chest and back, it should create a V, a real big, thick, bull-looking neck. The second thing you want to look at is how far the esophagus hangs down and how pronounced it is. A real heavy, thick esophagus normally means the deer is over 5 years old. And the third thing is how big the muscle is right behind his ear. Folks, I looked at a lot of different deer, a lot of different ages of deer being a taxidermist. And one thing that I can tell you that all those big old deer have in common is how big the muscle is right behind their ear butt. So if you see that, you know there's a pretty good chance that deer is over 5 years old. And the third tip is be persistent. You can see on this film, I had a real good chance to shoot that deer with my muzzleloader, but he got away from me. Well, a lot of guys would hang their head and Hey, I did too, but I got right back after him. The next year I put my trail cameras back out, and lo and behold, he showed back up. So I knew I was going to get another crack at him. I got several pictures of him that year, but guess what? He had gotten bigger, so I was kind of glad that I didn't get him. The second thing about being persistent is when I shot that deer, I hit him a little high in the shoulder, and hey, I thought I smoked him. 24 hours later, I jumped that deer out of his bed. Well, when that deer went running over the hill, had his tail up flagging, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is a bad deal. And a lot of hunters would have quit right then. But I knew that I had a half arrow sticking in his rib cage, and I knew that that deer was going to die. So I was very persistent at following his trail. Folks, if you try these three things, make sure your powder's dry, learn to field judge your deer on the hoof, and be persistent at chasing big whitetail bucks, I know you're going to be more successful. Folks, thanks for being with me today on the 15-Yard Files.
Back in the woods where you can't see the forest for all the cottonwood trees, my little humble abode sits back in a hole where nothing don't bother me. And in the spring of the year when the big bird strut, you can bet I'm gonna call. I'll be hunting tom turkeys and eating deer jerky that we killed back in the fall. I got a blonde-haired, green-eyed beauty queen. She knows how to treat me right, and she's been known to hunt the rut till she's got one in her sights. We got a big old red truck with 4 doors and 4-wheel drive to haul one out, and she'll hang him up and skin him and fry him in the kitchen and hang up another hazel tree.